Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Gross with Condé Systems, back with you to share a little bit of our secret for sublimation success. I want to call Wednesdays here at Condé Educational Wednesdays. Sprite, we need to come up with a really nice title, come up with something. And of course, Sprite has got her hand in here. And come over and just say hello. We can sort of watch social distancing. So it's our great honor to have as our special guest here today the Geo-Knight Company. And the Geo-Knight Company, Aaron, how old is the Geo-Knight Company?
Great question. We actually started in 1885, so we're celebrating our 135th anniversary. That's 135 years. Originally making shoe press machinery and all kinds of die pressing, cutting machinery, and then we moved over into heat presses back in the 1970s. So for about 40, 50 years, we've been doing heat presses.
So for now, we don't have cold fusion sublimation, do we, Aaron?
Not yet. It's always 10 years away.
So we need heat to cause the ink to turn into a gas. And of course, heat presses have many, many uses. In fact, one of the great things about the Geo-Knight Company is they build the heat presses, and so they have built thousands of custom use heat presses, right?
Yes. I would say we're over a million. We're in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of standard heat presses, and yes, many tens of thousands of custom presses.
So when the big boys and big girls around the world need these special heat presses that may do certain automatic features, may do some auto registering of paper, do all sorts of fancy things, they turn to a company that has done it before, and they turn to a company that will make a product that lasts. I guess most of your presses, Aaron, are they good for, say 6 months, a year?
You know, one of our unofficial mottos is these presses last decades, not years. There's a lot of disposable presses out on the market that are famous for a couple months, getting people started, get your feet wet for 6 months, and then you have to throw them away and buy them again. Our presses are all heavy welded, heavy steel design, and we boast decades. We'll see customers regularly use them day in and day out, pressing away for 10, 15 years plus, and then buy some replacement parts, and they're right back up and running again.
So
decades,
I typically stretch it just a little bit more than that. You know, I tell people this is probably going to be the last press you buy. Now, that's of course not true, because we hope that they need a second press to expand their business. Yeah. But indeed, I think you could probably find, say, a used Geo-Knight press on the market, 20 years old or something, and they could call you up and get a part for it, right?
You know, they can. They could definitely bring it back to life, but we just find they'll have much more joy in their lives bringing joy to us by buying a new press. But yes, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, let me step back here and say Geo-Knight is our exclusive heat press manufacturer, and the logic is very simple. We're here to make you successful, and that recipe of success, of course, is quite simple. Sell you good equipment, do great support, teach you how to use it, support you every step of the way, and help you be successful. And it's very simple. So in one way you can look at it, that if you have good equipment, if you know how to use it, we hope that you can buy lots of supplies, substrates, and make lots of money for you and your family and your business. And so that's the recipe that we've had all these years, and I found that works. I can see an issue with a client having a problem with a heat press. It may have been they had a little lightning strike. It may be something happened, and I turn it over to Aaron, and in a very short time, we can expect Aaron to jump in and help. And Geo-Knight also is, I think, relatively distinct in that they make custom presses, but they do start at a small press model and they go all the way up to, say, the Triton. How big is the Triton?
The standard size is 4 feet by 8 feet. It's 54 inches by 103 inches. But we've gone out to 6 feet by 13 feet, just monstrosities.
So pretty much they've got everything from small press to large ones to shuttle presses to pneumatic presses, just the full gamut. I guess you do lots of stuff other than presses, right?
Not quite. We do things in regards to heat presses for something totally different than sublimation. So we'll make a lot of presses for lamination of materials. We've made a lot of specialty presses during this season for mask products and shield products and heat forming. Anything that involves heat and forming and pressure, a lot of times our presses really weigh in on that.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, Aaron, what I'm going to do at this point in time is I know I've given people, I think, a fair amount of time to join in with this, and we thank everybody, and I wish I could read all the comments like Sprite does, but I'm sorry, I'm just not that talented. But appreciate everybody being with us. So I want you to explain to us what a Geo-Knight heat press is, maybe how it's different from, I guess, the typical Chinese heat presses, and talk a little bit about how heat presses are made. I know you're a famous company. I know you've had your thing on the TV or whatever regarding how it's made. But anyway, take it over, and I'm going to make you full screen.
Okay, sure. And feel free to jump in with any questions you have as I pause or as we go from one style to the next. Throw out questions. I thrive on people's questions. Our product line really is divided up in small hobby presses, like our famous purple jet presses, over to more commercial grade clamshell presses that a lot of screen printers like, people like that need more restrictive space, and then over to swing away presses. And then you go to air operated, and then you go to large format presses. So it kind of goes in that range of hobby starter, clamshell commercial grade, swing away commercial grade, and then automatic, and then large format. Just a basic overview. A lot of people are probably very familiar with this product line, but basic overview. Here are our two hobby presses. You can start with a little 9x12 or a 12x14 press, and the key to these is to keep the price point low. We're not trying to compete with the throwaway disposable Chinese presses, but we are trying to offer something that's a long-lasting hobby press that's not digital. So there's no digital controls. It still has the same type of heater, heater that we use in our lifetime warranted heaters, but it's just intended for basic smaller transfer use. You can kind of do everything on these that you do on our larger swingaways. It's just a more analog control and a lower price point and smaller heat platform. But from those hobby presses, you jump up into the clamshell presses where we have manual as well as auto release presses that'll actually open up automatically, and two different sizes. So these type of t-shirt presses, you have two sizes. You have a 14x16 typical, medium t-shirt transfer size. It covers most transfer papers. And then you have the really oversized famous 16x20, which covers much more than a typical transfer size. And so that's kind of the decision you make with those is, do I get the standard 14-16 or do I get the much larger 16x20? Most Americans always like to go with the SUV. So the 16x20 is by far more popular. You can get these clamshells in either manual or auto pop-up like I was just showing. But the beauty of these presses, and this is very important, every other clamshell on the market kind of has a hinge at the back where when you reach in, you experience burned knuckles. Whereas with the design on these, we design them to reach way back. So you have a much, much bigger clearance. So when you're loading your shirts, you don't actually have to deal with the knuckle burning experience. These open up and away from the bottom table. So you have a lot more clearance. Actually, if I can show this a little bit better here. So that's the one nice benefit of these clamshells is they do come down a lot straighter. They're limited in how thick of a product you can do. but much better clearance at the back. And these use the same all-thread tables that all of our other presses are using. All-thread is where you can load a shirt from the front or load a shirt from the back and fully thread it on either screen printing style upside down or load it on from the back right side up. The nice benefit of that is you have the benefit of fast loading where you're just laying down a single transfer paper or loading from the front to lay out complex goods. So you can load from either direction. That's clamshell. And then we jump into swing away, which is, of course, Condé's favorite product line. The swing away presses, and actually I'm gonna just rotate this around real quick. Don't get dizzy. Nobody get dizzy.
Yeah, I've got my
Of course,
DK20S
our flagship
here.
product line is the DK20S, the 16x20 swing away press. This has, again, that same type of all-thread table. I'll show you the loading on that. It's a really nice design because what it allows you to do is you can spread the shirt or split or dress the shirt, and you're basically just sliding it on that way, so just one layer of the shirt is exposed, but you can do the same thing right side up. So you can load the shirt right side up, so you're not being forced to work upside down. The beauty of not having to work upside down is simple. You can lay everything out common sense wise, and all the other product lines on the market, when you're threading shirts, they force you to load it front loading. I don't know why they do that, but I think they do that just because they want us to have greater market share. So basically they're forcing you, especially with a lot of China presses, if you're able to front load or if you're able to thread them, they're forcing you to load the shirt upside down. Ours, you can go both ways. The nice thing about these tables also, quick pull pin release. So you can just, and that's like that with all the models that use these tables. You pop a pin out here, you can pop these tables off, and you can go all the way down to 3x3, 6x8, do little labels, sleeve platens that are long and narrow to put a pant leg or a sleeve on, all kinds of stuff like that. Small circular tables for totes and bags, and custom. We'll make anything anyone comes up with, and we'll turn it around within a couple days. So we can, and of course, we don't charge nearly enough for custom tables. So that's kind of an overview of our manual presses. And then the next subject is really the air-op presses, the automatic presses. Here comes the dizzy point again with my high-tech panning. And basically with the air-op presses, same design, same table, same all-thread design, but you're just pushing a button. And so you automatically push the button, it counts down and presses, and then at the end of the cycle, releases. Very, very smooth, very gentle. So you're just swinging and pressing. And the nice thing about these is if you're doing a lot of pressing, let's say more than 4 hours a day. So if you're doing more than 4 hours a day pressing, constant production use like that, you do want to consider an automatic press, that you're just activating, pressing a button, loading and unloading, and you're not dealing with bench pressing like you're working out all day. So if you're getting into several hundred pieces a day, if you're getting into 4 to 6 hours a day of constant use on a press, that really is where an automatic press comes in, and where you kind of transition from manual to automatic.
Okay, let me, hey, Aaron, okay, a couple of things real quick. So for sublimation, folks, unless you're only doing soft substrates, fabrics, things like that, we recommend a swing away heat press. All right, flexibility with thickness or whatever. As the substrates, there's a question about, as the substrates get thicker, what's the thickest you can do in the clamshell? It really not something that you want to do, because you, as you get thicker, it's just not very effective, because it's sort of closing at the rear first and that. So really for sublimation, folks, we would strongly recommend a swing away. But when it comes to pneumatic presses, Aaron, do you recommend a pneumatic press for sublimation to shirts?
That gets a little sketchy. That gets a little interesting. So yes, you're absolutely right. If you're doing anything over metal or very thin wood products, you should not use a clamshell press. It's just not going to press evenly. If you're trying to do tiles, they're just not going to work right. You need a swing away press. The swing aways, all of them, automatic or manual, will go up to 2 inches thick. So unlike some of the other swing aways on the market, which only do thin fabrics, they're not actually adjustable for really thick items. 2 inches,
Okay.
not one.
And
2 inches thick.
so
You
the
can
ideal
adjust for it.
press.
Here's the interesting thing. When you're doing soft goods, especially vapor apparel or very soft goods, and you're using a vapor foam pad and you're avoiding that mark, that stamp mark that David has covered very extensively, very well, you really have to dial down the pressure extremely light on the air-operated presses. And there are some very sensitive fabrics that still might not be happy enough, even with the lowest pressure setting on an air-operated press. So you need to ask your salesperson about that. You know, I'm going to be doing this or that. Is this going to be okay in an air-operated press? Most of the time, absolutely yes. But there are some circumstances where you really have to dial down the pressure very low on
what I would tell you is
to make sure you're not getting that stamp mark. Go ahead.
what I would tell you is that certainly from our point of view, we would recommend a manual swing away. Our favorite would be the DK20S, as you can go extremely light to very nice heavy pressure. Question out there, when you turn your DK20S on, how long does it take to get to 400 degrees?
16 by 20 heat platens, usually about 15 to 17 minutes to 375 to 400. So I'll say 17 minutes is pretty typical. They're very fast heating. The important thing is they have that super coil microwind heater. So the heating just isn't fast. It's also very uniform right out to the edge of the plat. But yeah, you're going to be well under 20 minutes.
Yeah, and my general feeling is my DK20S is right beside me. It probably heats up in about 10 minutes, but maybe I'm just not watching water boil. So that so
yeah,
so a
it boils faster when
DK20S
you don't watch.
DK20S we would say
that's from dead cold. So you'll experience quicker if it's a little warmer in the room or it's been used in the past. The other interesting thing is if you're doing lower temp transfers like around 350 or 375, it's much faster then as well.
Yeah, I think the Geo-Knight presses in general are the most flexible presses for very low temps and very high temps, right?
Yeah, most models are not going down into the 150, 200 degree range. Ours you can digitally set all the way down to 32, freezing. They're not going to refrigerate anything. And then our presses will actually go up to 600 Fahrenheit, which I challenge you to find an application that needs that hot. Some strange lamination applications sometimes need 550 or 600, but they're capable of doing a far wider range, which really just means they're capable of holding up to a lot more abuse than presses that have a much narrower range of control.
Yeah, just looking at the questions, and I apologize, I can't see the questions very well, but to change the bottom plate, and it's a pin, you lift it out, you put the other one in place, and put the pin back into place.
Yeah, let me show you. I mean, the whole purpose of video is to demo. Let me see if I can show you. This one, basically I just pull the pin. So we've got this quick release pin here, and then the tables just pull right off. And I can actually show you. Basically, these tables just drop onto a tubing structure, and you can see the holes. If I can turn this right, you can see the holes in the actual table. See that? And they're on both directions, which means when you get small bottom tables, you can do a landscape or a portrait configuration with just one table. You no longer have to buy two separate tables to do the same thing. And that just drops right back onto the bracket. So you have the other one, drop it in place, pop that pin in. Oh my goodness, I did it in seconds. And I actually don't do that for a living. So it's very fast.
Okay, so another question was, how do you adjust, like on a DC-16, which is right there, how do you adjust the pressure, the height?
Yep, so the height and the pressure adjustment are the same thing. You got this nice, big, ugly black knob. I think it's pretty, actually. And if you're turning it lefty-loosey, you're raising the head up, which will give you less pressure. And it will give you more clearance. If you need to do much thicker items, you can just keep raising the press up by turning the knob left. And conversely, if you turn it righty-tighty, clockwise, you're lowering the head, and that's making more pressure, or you're able to do thinner items.
Cool, cool. So very fun.
Whereas on the automatic press, to set pressure, all you're doing is dialing in a specific PSI. So this little PSI gauge, I can actually dial that gauge right into 77 PSI, or if I had a product that needs very specific range, and I've worked out my own recipe so that no matter who uses the press, they don't have to feel or gauge the pressure at all. They can just dial in a specific setting. That's the other great benefit of air-op presses. You can dial in a very specific PSI, and then you're just pressing buttons. And it doesn't matter if you're strong or weak, the pressing of the button is the same.
Very, very nice, very nice. Aaron, I take it you're just the PR person there. You don't do you actually do real work?
I do nothing. Just stand in front of a screen, and I'm the Maytag guy. I go like this and just wait for phone calls. No. I'm involved in machine design, some factory layout stuff and factory work, but mainly support. Our most important service is keep everybody up and running forever, support everybody forever, and we're not allowed to go home until we respond to every call, and we're not allowed to go home until we answer every email. Support is the most important product.
You design most of the presses yourself, correct?
That's just a redesign, right? Redesign. We've had a line well before I was born, and then I helped with others make it go digital and some of the other changes. But the current product line,
the digital features pretty comprehensive. Do the presses yet have the Alexa plug-in?
No, we don't believe in stalking people and listening in on their conversations, or just gauging how much they've used the press. And we're a very anti-nanny state. So no, we don't have those different features. We have unlimited presets. We have all kinds of cycle counters for your use. We have all kinds of, features for alarms and countdown counters. There's a lot of extensive features in the control. Every feature in there is every feature you can find in the heat press today. The difference is we're not using really sensitive touch screens that break easily, and we're not using really expensive iPhone touchpad or technology or screen displays that die quickly in a harsh environment like this. What we found is this industrial control, it's bright and it's beautiful and it's really heavily warrantied. Works great, and just a quick little push of a button can get you anywhere you need and get you anything you want without overly complex gee whiz features that cause people huge headaches with other product lines that will remain unnamed. But there's other product lines that have indulged in Alexa iPhone stuff, and it's a huge nightmare and a big expense.
So one of the things that I tell people about is buying a heat press is more than just what temperature it's at. That it's sort of like a stove. Are you cooking on the teeny tiny Coleman stove, or you're cooking on the big gas burner? And so it's heat that actually does the sublimation for you. And how would you characterize the heat output of a Geo-Knight press?
Well, we're pulling maximum wattage. Like on our 16 by 20 press, we're pulling 1,800 watts, which is the most we can comfortably pull from a 1-ton outlet. So it's the maximum amount of wattage we can pull out of a wall outlet. And what we're doing is we're more uniformly distributing that, and we've got a really thick, solid heating element that's keeping that as a reservoir. So we can recover faster, we can overshoot quicker, we can ramp up quicker during pressing times. The funny thing is our controller is a little bit too honest. So our control actually tells you way too much information of every bit of minutia of actual fluctuations in the core of the platen. And that can be disconcerting to a new user, not realizing that other presses are swinging much, much further, but they're just not showing that on the display. They're showing you just a generic reading from that. So we have a lot more accuracy and a lot more heat reservoir.
Can you calibrate your presses?
Absolutely, yes. And sometimes customers need to do that. Sometimes certain electrical environments, or if there's a little ground leakage or RF noise, can actually interfere a little bit and set them offset. So there's a really simple offset calibration setting where you can take a probe to the surface, measure the temperature with your own probe or with ours. We actually provide ours as a loaner, and you can send it back for full credit. That's just for customers to know. But you can actually calibrate it so that whatever the screen says, you can perfectly match that screen display to the surface display that you're measuring on the heat platen surface itself.
Okay. Well, show us some big iron stuff.
Big iron stuff gets us out into the factory. I'm not sure what's out there, but I think you're segueing into a factory tour. If there are any questions first, I can help answer before we go
I'm
into
sure
that.
there are. I apologize for a guy says my DK20S doesn't have a pin, so there was a time with the evolution where the bottom plating was not as flexible as it is now.
Yeah, so that was just about maybe 5 years ago or so that we came up with the all thread tables and the pull pin tables. He unfortunately is experiencing the longevity of our presses to the negative. But the nice thing is we will never ever abandon older version presses. We will always have parts available, always have support available, and we'll always keep it up and running as long as they want to. But that feature, that all thread feature on the tables, was not used on the older DK20S version. That's a good point.
Gotcha.
Anyone else?
I'll try to field them. Let's see. Interested in a Geo-Knight DC16 AP. Is there anything else I need to purchase apart from the air-operated heat press? You need to purchase a compressor, of course, and
Yeah,
just about.
Some shops have shop air. So if you have shop air, this takes such little volume, so little volume that you can just tee off or branch off of an existing airline and feed it to that with a little 1/4-inch hose. Otherwise, a little 5 to 6 gallon compressor. There are these wonderful California Air Tools compressors online. Actually, Condé has a kit, and they're silent compressors. They're ultra quiet silent compressors. So you don't have to put the loud compressor way away in the accounting department to keep it nice and quiet and pleasant for yourself. You can have it close by, and they're so quiet and so pleasant. Ultra quiet, ultra silent California Air Tools compressors, and Condé actually sells a kit, and those are wonderful, and they'll run multiple air-operated machines.
Okay, so another question was on the interchangeable bottom plating. Pretty much all the presses now support that feature?
Yes, yes. So that all-thread table will work for everything from here on. It's not going to work for our specialty presses, which I skipped, and I'm sorry. Our specialty presses, like our label press and our cap press, those guys have their own interchangeable tables for doing little labels and cap pressing. But for everything else, we have all thread tables, except for the combo. The combo also has fully interchangeable tables, but it's a different style because of this really tall pedestal, and because it's able to take cap attachments and mug attachments and plate attachments. The combo is a little bit different, but the point is all of our tables are front loading, rear loading, interchangeable, sleeve, bag, tote, label, whatever you want, you can do them on any of our presses.
Cool. I think that's it. You want to head out the door?
So this is going to be awkward, but it's going to be fun. What I'll do, and I still have tons of time on this battery for the, so we can take you out for quite a while. So this was our kind of our foyer showroom, but now we have the secret back door into the factory, and we will bring you in and see how this goes. And I think actually the shop is already kind of shut down, so we have the whole place to ourselves. So here's a nice view of just an assembly aisle going all the way down about 350 feet. This is about a 60,000 square foot factory. I am allowed to show you this without having to shoot you afterwards, so this is fine. And what we'll see is kind of having to walk a little bit backwards. These are all assembly aisles. This half of the factory, from halfway point of that building there, all the way over to this point, these points, you have, sorry, I'm getting yelled at that my battery's low, but it's not really that low. We have some time. is all of our assembly areas, all the places where we make and put everything together. And then the other half of the factory, which I will demonstrate to you now. This is is machining. So this is a large format assembly, more machining down there. We're putting together some very special presses, weird looking. You've never seen anything like that before. Forget you saw that. We're taking a raw sheet of steel here, and then we're
Okay. So Aaron freaking out a little bit here, so I'm going to pull it back to me till he gets back online. Interesting comment. One comment was about I think I enjoyed this comment about Dale talking about how manufacturers talk about each other. And hold on, Aaron's calling here. Hey, Aaron, yes. You want to try again?
No, the laptop is completely dead.
Okay, well.
If you can let them know the battery completely died when I went mobile, and just let them know they saw everything they needed to see.
Okay, all right, well, thank you, Aaron. Okay, you take care. All right, so that was Aaron. His battery did go, and over. And what I would say is that our job, of course, is to help clients, and I'm an electrical engineer. And I have seen many presses in my time, and I've taken them apart, and I can tell you that when you're dealing with heat, you're dealing with electricity, the presses should be wired to our U.S. standards. And I've had many opportunities to inspect presses that were not up to the standards that we would expect in the United States. And so this comes down to a safety issue of buying a press that's safe, buying a press that's going to last a long time. But these are jobs here in the United States, and if something were to go wrong, well, guess what? The Geo-Knight company is here in the United States. It's not a Chinese company that you're calling and trying to take care of it. So they are up front, and I can tell you that in today's world, it seems like it's almost a rare situation to have products made here in the United States. And so Geo-Knight is one of those outstanding examples, along with, of course, the great folks at Universal Woods, the Unisub brand, the Chromolux brand that are out there. And that's why. And I don't believe that you're going to get a better warranty out of any press. Most of the Platons that Geo-Knight makes have a lifetime warranty on the thing that gets hot. So just a outstanding story there in Brockton, Mass, of a company. And how many companies are, whatever Aaron said, 135 years or whatever. Aaron, by the way, his last name is Knight. He is actually a distant cousin of the founder. One of the great-grandsons is the president of the company, Chick Knight. Outstanding individual. And again, it's one of those things that they're not trying to do more than what you see. They're focusing on essentially heat presses. And we've found them to be excellent. So on the big iron, which I think is really cool to see, they've got their famous Maxi series we have here. Of course, a Geo-Knight 44 by 64 size air-operated press, and it's great. And so I've got a couple of questions, which are great questions. what about pressing large aluminum panels 30 by 30 is, yes, you should definitely get an air-operated maxi. In fact, if you tried to buy a manual one, we wouldn't sell it because we know that it's not going to work. So in the steps up in their presses, the DK20S to me is the ideal press for most people. Its size maxes out, for instance, the new SG1000, 13 by 21 on this, really good fit. If you have, for instance, the new Epson F570, that's a 24-inch wide press. The DK32AP, which is 26 by 32, is an excellent fit for that press, really giving you that 24 by 30 piece of metal. To get to a 30 by 30, you need to move into the small maxi presses, and so and then they keep growing till they get to a point where you transition to the Triton, which are mammoth heat presses. So that's one of those things that that the Geo-Knight Company just does exceptionally well. And I think the best part is that it's a mechanical piece of equipment, and ultimately it's going to need service in some way, and that's where I think the Geo-Knight Company excels well above anybody else, and that is through getting you back up and going. I'll see the messages come in about I have my Geo-Knight press, it's not heating up. What do I need to do? And Aaron is on the spot to help you to diagnose, what the problem is, and then ultimately to fix it. So got lots of questions. Sorry, I'm a little bit slow on some of this stuff. But again, I can just tell you that that the flexibility of their presses from small to large is why we have such a great relationship with them, because ultimately everything we do is indeed designed to help you be successful. So Aaron had to drop off. His battery died. Aaron is real talented. I think he was understating his role at Geo-Knight. So he's basically in charge from the parts that go into presses, the heating element, the electronics, to the actual design of the presses. And these folks at the Geo-Knight Company, you can check out some of their videos where they have built these really intriguing specialty presses for, say, some automated manufacturing. And the materials they use in the presses, they are really and truly built like a tank. So they're gonna do very well. Seen many presses get really a rough ride going to a trade show or something, and you would think, hey, there's no way that press is going to survive. You power up and it works. So let's see. Talking about the printers here, and we'll probably talk more about the printers on our Facebook Live on Friday. So one of the questions, just shifting gears from heat presses for just a moment, is the new printers are here. They are putting a strain on everything, because I think there's a lot more printers, there's a lot more demand than there are printers. So it's put us into one of those positions I think we've been in too often. That is too much, just a strong demand and limited inventory. But we're doing what we can and going pretty well. So the question somebody asked, and I think is a fantastic question, Edward asked it, is I have an 800, should I upgrade to the SG-1000? And my answer would be, simply would be no. The 800 is a fantastic press, fantastic printer, and the additional features to me, it really turns out that both of them are just, you know, great presses. I mean, great printers. Got presses on my mind. Apologize. So even if you've got an older printer, an SG 7100, still a great printer. So just like Apple has to make things exciting with talking about their new generation stuff, very often what has been around for a long time continues to work. The best part is that when you do get ready to get a new printer, your paper trays are compatible with the new printer. So that certainly makes it easy to transition. But you know, again, I think that these new printers are incrementally better. They have a front lit display for folks that had a hard time seeing the display. Obviously, probably not looking at the display too much, but when red light turns on, you certainly want to know why. The printer has Wi-Fi, which in my mind, I don't recommend you use. I think Wi-Fi is too finicky from a performance point of view to use. I strongly recommend you go with USB, but Wi-Fi is there. Next is the printers come with a 2-year warranty. Certainly means that Sawgrass is standing behind the printer, believing that it's going to have a very long life. Excuse me. But again, you know, I think typically these printers do last a long time. Although I tell people that it's a mechanical piece of equipment. It runs colored water, and so I tell people that typically you should budget for a new printer, say every 3 years. And if your printer lasts longer than that, great, you keep going. And so again, being an electrical engineer, I'm always a little concerned about how the equipment's doing. We have great videos that show you how to clean the printer, take care of it. I think the best solution is, of course, get us involved in any issues you have. Often we can help. But again, it's a bunch of mechanical stuff. It's got electrostatic transport belt. So got a lot of things going on in the printer. I think the more you use the printer, probably the better off you are. Certainly you want to keep the printer turned on. I do recommend that you use the printer every couple of days. If you can't use the printer every couple of days, then send it a little test file from your computer. Open up Microsoft Word, put one letter on it, print it, load plain paper in the printer, and that's going to keep the printer healthy. You know, it's sort of like a car you never drive. You're likely to have some issues, dead battery, flat tires, possibly some moisture in some of the engine parts. So again, use the printer is my best recommendation. One question I think is pretty interesting. Obviously, my area of expertise, to an extent, having done it for all these years, is sublimation. In my first life, I helped develop the world's first monochrome laser printers. They were actually Canon-based engines, and then ultimately they were Ricoh-based engines, so I got to know the Ricoh people. So really, really exciting first life. And one of the issues that I faced with as soon as I got into sublimation is, should we really be using laser printers and color laser printers for sublimation? And so, you know, laser printers were sort of my first love. And the answer is no. In the grand scheme of things, after all these years and many attempts at it, laser printers have not done the job with running, doing a good job with sublimation, running sublimation toner. They have not. We tried to launch a sublimation printer twice, hoping that it fit into some part of the market, and the consistency, the quality, the dithering, just never really got up to anything like what we were able to achieve with inkjet printers. And to me, inkjet printers are much simpler, less parts. Basically, you run colored water that has sublimation dyes. You put it on inexpensive, what we call sublimation release paper, and you're done. So with folks out there that are pushing color laser printers for sublimation, chances are they don't sell an inkjet printer for sublimation. So they may be out there involved with some of the exciting white toner printers, and those are really cool for doing cotton, dark cotton, black cotton shirts. So they're good. But when it comes to sublimation, my recommendation would be to stay with the inkjet printers. They're going to do the best job. And also, I would certainly favor staying in the sublimation world for hard substrates. Some of the folks out there, including us, push some of the hard substrate papers for color laser, and I think they do work, but they're usually fairly difficult to use or require a learning curve. But sometimes that's just what you got to do. So we've got an array of transfer papers for laser printers, but they do require some patience. They certainly require a good heat press, especially a good swing away. So I would tell you that. Other things real quick, fluorescent laser toners. I have certainly seen those, and they look promising for use with the white toner printers. They give you sort of a little bit of an exciting look, and so sure, you can certainly explore those. So again, it's one of those kind of dividing lines of what's the domain of, say, the white toner printers, and what's the domain of the sublimation printers. If you're doing cotton decorating, especially on dark garments, then you're in the domain of a DTG printer or a Oki, like an Oki white toner printer. I would say the Oki white toner printer, I think is a better way to go for most people, as it is more flexible. It's sort of like a Swiss Army knife. You can change the personality by changing the paper. In the case of sublimation, we don't mess with the papers too much. One paper sort of works. And as long as the substrate is decorated, is coated for sublimation, or is made of, an oil-loving molecule like polyester, and is white or light colored, you're good. Will sublimation one of these days be a stellar champ for cotton? I would say we're certainly inching towards that. We're not there yet. There's all sorts of products that sort of push us there. But again, cotton decorating is really better in the domain of DTG and the Oki white toner printers. Well, I'm sure I missed a lot of questions, and I want to thank everyone for being with us today. And again, what I want to do is ask for your input to make this sort of, we'll call it Education Wednesday, especially in me inviting guests in that can help you with maybe a particular area to grow your business. We've got my good friend Aaron Montgomery coming in, I think, next Wednesday on business development. Just an awesome guy, and we've got just a number of guests lined up. So if you can think of an area that we can invite a guest in to talk with them, especially focusing on our industry. You can watch lots of videos, but we want to talk about how it relates to our industry. And here at Condé, we very much thank you for your business. and we look forward to helping you grow your business, which is, of course, the only reason I come to work is to help you be successful. Well, seeing last-minute questions. So I'm sure I missed some, so I want to thank you again, and so please tune in. Take care.